Roger. This is the Family Showdown!
Howdy folks, today we're looking at our top 10 favorite themes for board games. In doing this list, we kind of noticed that there is a crossover between themes and categories of games, so don't give us too much flack for our top 10. I guess some honorable mentions to start off. Do you have any?
I have one.
Okay, well I guess I'll start my honorable mentions before we jump into the big thing.
Yes.
Two of the ones I want to mention are Adventure and Deduction. I love those games, but to me, Adventure is really broad.
Yeah.
Maybe too broad of a category. And Deduction seems to me more of a game type than a theme.
Unless you're doing like Sherlock Holmes or something very obviously.
Right.
But it's.
Then it'd be more like mystery, right, instead of deduction or something. But anyway, and then my last one's Vikings. It didn't quite make my theme because I guess there's not really a lot of Viking games. I like the Viking theme, but there's not a lot of Viking themed games that we have.
I only have a couple.
Yeah. So anyway, so there's my honorable mentions.
All right. My honorable mention is Escape because I like that theme. I don't know why. We only have a couple games that really are escaping, like Ink and Gold, I guess. You're escaping out of there in time. And, Escape from the Temple.
Yeah.
That's obviously it. So, and the Temple of Chalk, the Adventurers game.
Yeah.
So, I guess we have 3 that I know of right off the top of my head. But, it's not a theme that's used very often, and it seems like it's really fun every time we play those.
Yeah, and it is kind of narrow. I mean, that's a kind of a small little niche theme.
But it's really fun, so I like that one. So it didn't quite make it.
Alrighty then. You want to start or you want me to start?
I'll start because I always start.
Alright, let's do this. Our top 10 board game themes.
Okay. Now, I'll try to explain. Now, some of them there's a couple that kind of could be considered a mechanic or mechanism, and if it is, I'll explain why I'm using the theme. I have examples for everything, so.
Okay.
My number 10 is exploration. And now a lot of times that is part of a game and not the whole game. Mm-hmm. So, like the Adventurers, the Temple of Chalk, exploration is just a part of the game. It's not the whole game. An Escape, of course, you're exploring the area. A really good exploration game is The Betrayal of House on the Hill. Mm-hmm. So that's like a horror theme also, but it's also exploration because you're exploring the house and you're learning about it as you go. And then there's also Zaya and other ones where you're laying down tiles as you're flying through space and learning about new sections of space. So.
Yeah, I agree with that. Again, that's another one of the ones that's kind of borderline, right? It's kind of a theme and kind of a genre or category of game.
Yeah.
So anyway,
but I like the theme of exploration because it's that
feeling.
Blindly leaping into the unknown and having to deal with what happens, and so it's not exactly the game mechanic itself; it's just the feeling and the theme that the game gives you that I'm talking about.
Yep, I agree.
Your number 10.
My number 10. Yeah, we're in that nebulous area. This is city building or territory building. I really enjoy games where you start off with almost nothing. You slowly build out, and you create it feels like you're building, and you start with nothing, and you end up with a large thing. So like Suburbia, reason I say territory building because Castles of Burgundy is more of a territory building than a city building. There's Subdivision, games like that. And I like the end result of, oh, look what I did. I've said this in many top 10s. Oh, look what I did at the end. So you feel like you're building out something.
Yes, I like that.
So
that is really fun.
My number 10, city building / territory building.
All right. My number 9 is Aliens. And I really like aliens in games. And usually it's something with like a special ability or something that they're doing or a little side thing. It may not necessarily be the entire theme for the whole game, but it's kind of like an underlying theme. Mm-hmm. So like Galaxy Trucker, you have aliens and stuff that are in there that you're transporting. And then you've also got Among the Stars, where you're dealing with the different
alien races.
Little alien races in there. Star Realms, you've got different factions and races that you're using to fight against your opponent. And then, of course, Star Trek. You've got special abilities depending on which game you're playing per alien races and things like that. So I really like that theme, of course.
That's a good one. That's a real good one.
Yeah.
It's kind of almost a. That's what theme is. It's kind of a flavor of a game, right? It's not necessarily what the game's completely about. It just adds some flavor to the game.
Yes,
Yep,
absolutely.
that's a good one. My number 9 is the Old West. I love cowboy-themed games. I wish there were more good ones. We have quite a few. Dice Town and Flick 'em Up and Colt Express and things like that. I just like the Old West. It just seems like it's a great theme to build a game out of, because you have not only you have the outlaw aspect of it, and the outlaw versus the sheriff or whatever. You also have the economy of the Old West, like the gold mining and things like that they have, and there's just so many different ways to approach an Old West themed game. You don't have to be just shooting each other with guns. There's other things that you can do around that. Poker. You can have a poker game, Old West poker type game.
Kind of like Dice Town.
Yeah, there's all kinds of different ways to utilize that theme, and I just really think it's a good one to work with. And I wish there were more games that were built around the Old West theme.
Speaking of the Old West, my number 8 is the same, and I agree. There's bang the dice game, so you kind of have the cowboys and you have the arrows for the Indians. You kind of have that old kind of feel to it. Flick 'em Up. The variety of the games that stick to this theme are really great, because you've got a lot of little flicky games, but then you've got Colt Express, which is 3D, but it's programmed movement, so it's a different kind of game. Dice Town, which is all about basically poker hands, but based off of the rolls of your dice.
Yep.
And then you have, of course, like Bang the Dice game, it's got a different variety. So there's a huge variety of games and game styles, but it's all around that same theme, and it's really well done. It's really, when they do it, it seems like they do a pretty good job with it. It's pretty fun. So I absolutely love the Old West as well.
All right. So
Big surprise.
So my number 8?
Yes.
My number 8 is Civilization. So this is kind of taking my city building and making it even more epic, right? So not only are you building out cities, you're building troops, or you're building up your economy, or you're building up your technology. So it's kind of a more overarching type of game, as opposed to a city building game. It just takes it kind of the next level. And we really don't have a lot of Civilization games. I think we only have a couple, but I really love that theme, and I wish there were more. I wish there was a way to do that in a shorter game. So to feel like you're having a Civilization game, it's longer and epic, and that's kind of goes hand in hand, right? And it's tough for us to do long games, so we have to be really selective on which ones we get in that area. But I really love that, starting from like an ancient, struggling civilization, and you build up to space travel, or you build up to all these different technologies, and your troops go from using spears to driving around in tanks, and it's just, you see that span of the game. It's a really cool experience to me.
Yeah, that's just a theme that I think both of us like in general, not just in board games, because gosh, I've played, I can't even tell you how many games of Sid Meier's Civilization on the computer from being a kid, until now, and just that's a really fun one.
Yep.
So my number 7 is Pirates. I would add ninjas too, just because. But I don't think, do we have any ninja games? I don't think we do.
I don't think so.
But if we did, I bet they would be really cool, because I love ninjas too. But
I got a secret for you. My number 7 is Pirates.
See? There's a little bit of overlap here. We like a lot of the same things. Pirates, oh my gosh, we've got Jamaica. And so that's kind of a racing game.
Right.
But you have some fighting off and on too. And then you've got Libertalia, which is a pirate theme. But it's kind of an overlaid theme, I'd say. It's not strictly pirate, because you're kind of doing...
It's pirate theme, but I don't know how much piratey it feels. It's more of a card playing game. Card playing, and I mean, you do have loot and plunder, and you're attacking each other and things like that. But it's more of it's almost like a card game. More than you don't get that feeling of ships and things like that. Yeah. But it's a fun game.
Yeah, it's a really fun game. And then, of course, the mother of all pirate games, Merchants and Marauders, is just like our favorite game, because usually almost everybody at some point is a marauder. Yeah. Very rarely is there someone who's strictly a merchant. If so, it's probably me. But yeah, there's just something about the pirates that's very fun.
Yeah, I mean, it's a theme that I don't know. It just seems like it'd be you'd really want to do it, but you really don't want to do it. It just seems like it's a cool time of exploration and battling and robbing and living on ships and the whole. It just seems like buried treasure and you all think about how many movies and stories are built around pirates. So it's just and you grow. I mean, as a kid, that's one of the things. I'd love to be a pirate. And you do the. The sword and swashbuckling when you're a kid.
Yes.
It just calls to you. It's just a great theme. And the only thing I see with the pirate theme though is I don't know if it's as functional as some other themes. You have expectations for a pirate theme. You're right. There's you're trying to get the most treasure. You're attacking each other. There's ships shooting each other. But there are some good ones, like you said, Jamaica's a racing game, really, with pirate flavor on it.
And they did a good job with it, Because, Libertalia, you might be able to reskin that one with a different theme, maybe.
Yeah.
But, Merchants and Marauders, no way.
Yeah.
There's no way you could do that. And honestly, with your honorable mention with the Vikings, it's kind of along the same lines.
Yeah.
The really well-done games definitely have that Viking flavor. You have expectations of the culture and the people and what they're going to be doing. So, those are pretty fun.
Yep.
So your number 7 was
Pirates.
Okay, so I guess I'm moving on to number 6.
Yep.
My number 6 is city building.
Hey.
And I really enjoy that too. Now, I enjoy the theme just as much as the mechanism. So in this case, I'm talking about the theme though, because you've got like New York 1901. You're building up your city and setting where you're going to put your skyscrapers. Would you consider My Village a city builder?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we just tried that game today and loved it. And I love that too because you're trying to build a church and you're trying to do merchant things and there's a bunch of different things you're trying to do throughout the city and collect that. And then, of course, there's subdivision and suburbia. And really, Caverna is ancient, prehistoric city building in a way. But you've got your farm in your mind. You're trying to build your own little city.
Think of that one. That's a good one.
Yeah. And I don't know what it is about that. Like you said, it's just the fact that you're starting with nothing or next to nothing, and you get to build this up. And by the time you're done, you usually, especially like, oh my goodness, with My Village, you have this whole chunk of the table is yours and what you've created at the end. And so you get to see the product of your labors, and that's really fun.
Definitely my favorite part of it is that part.
Yeah, there's just something about that theme that just that sense of accomplishment and build up. So
my 6?
6.
My 6 is mythology. I've always, even from a young lad, I've always had an interest in mythology, all kinds. In Norse mythology, Greek, Roman, American Indian, you Native American? Oh, sorry about that. I just think it's a good, it's just interesting to me because it just, whole civilizations are built around mythologies and how they live their lives and what they do day to day, and you take that and you port it over to a game, and it's just really interesting to me.
Well, it is. It's their culture in a nutshell. I mean, they explain mythology is usually used to explain all the natural phenomena in the world around them, how they view the world.
Right.
There's so much in a mythological base that you can do so much with that in the game.
And another reason I picked this is so many of our games you don't even really think about it, but Blood Rage is mythology.
Also the Norse,
Champions of Midgard is mythology.
Wow, I didn't think about that.
Elysium mythology. There's Civilization, even through the ages, has some a flavor of mythology to it. I more so even than the game, just the mythology thing just really interests me because it's just so fascinating that that like you said, ancient civilizations used it to explain their surroundings, basically to make sense of the world around them because they didn't have necessarily the science or the understanding to explain things, so they just assumed it was a deity or something that did all these different things they couldn't explain. And you port that to a game, and it just really interests me. So it just you take any game and you put that on top of it, and it just makes the game more interesting to me.
I think you just out-nerded me. That's pretty good. That was a good one. I don't even have the mythology on my list. I feel like I failed somehow.
But the thing about it is, I mean, I like the ancient civilization games, but the mythology thing is what really draws me in more so than ancient Greeks or ancient Romans. It's the like I said, the deities and the things.
No, that's good. I like that one.
Anyway,
A lot.
so that's my number 6, mythology.
That's a good one. I like that. All right, my number 5, my theme is farming. Now, normally, that theme by itself sounds boring, and normally I would never put this on my list, but the games that have that theme in them are some of my favorites. So, of course, Viticulture is, like, right up there. I love that. And who'd have thought? That game, oh my gosh, we could play that every day, all the time. I'd be happy.
Yep.
Caverna has farming in it. Agricola and Agricola All Creatures Great and Small, that's got a huge farming element in it. Isn't there another one we don't have that has farming in it that we've played?
Well, the main Agricola game has it.
Yeah, the main Agricola. We don't have that game, but
I don't know off the head. That's not on my list, so I didn't really think about it.
But there's
spoilers.
Those are oh my gosh, those games alone are enough to make that on my list because I absolutely love, I don't know what it is about that element. I think it has to do again with the other aspect of city building. You've got your farm and you start with nothing and you cultivate it and build it up, and pretty soon you have harvests and things and you get to see the results of your labors. So I really enjoy that.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that at first blush you think, farming, boring, but it's
the management.
Yeah,
I guess.
it's the whole. I have to need these things to make these things, and I got to time it right, and everything has to be done a certain way. It makes it. It's a vehicle to organize a game, right? And it makes it interesting. And a lot of times with the farming, it's again that thing for me is look what I did at the end, right? You have I made 10,000 vegetables, or I made all these wine, and
I fed my people.
I fed my people.
Common theme in most of those games if you haven't played those. So yeah, your number 5?
My number 5 is, I think it was already mentioned, right? Exploration? Or was that an honorable mention?
Why, yes. No, that was my number 10.
All right, exploration. I don't know what it is about exploration games, is that you flip over a tile, what's going to happen? I mean, it's just that mystery of what's going to happen. And a lot of times in exploration games, you're taking a risk by doing that, right? Yeah. Usually you can play it safe and kind of do things in the area you've already explored, or you can take a risk and go to some new area. It's just I like that reveal of flipping something over or whatever to see what happens. And I don't know, I just like that feeling of that tension of or you're looking for something, right? No, is this going to be the one guy I get to find it out? Because I just played Temple of Elemental Evil recently, solo, and the cat is about to attack the microphone. So if you hear a blast, I just played Temple of Elemental Evil. Sorry about that. Temple of Elemental Evil recently, and in that game you're looking for like an exit, and it's somewhere in the thing, and every time you're like, is this the exit? Oh, it's not the exit. Is this the exit? Oh, it's not the exit. So I just love that tension of what that next tile is. So that's
some of our best moments. Oh my gosh, Xayah. If you've played Xayah, you can fly into the sun and die if you don't pay attention to what you're doing. And it's just hilarious. I don't know why, but it's just stuff like that is just fun. It's fun.
So my number 5 is, and her number 10 is exploration.
All right. My number 4 is fantasy, and I know some people feel like that has been overdone, and yes, there are some games that slap it on, and that's disappointing to me because you can do so much with fantasy and have a lot of fun with it, and I think it deserves more than just being slapped on games as a theme. Gosh, we have a ton of games that have fantasy, from little games like Dragonwood, Welcome to the Dungeon, just cute little portable games. We've got heavier games, Dice Masters D&D, Thunderstone, Smash Up, really, Lords of Waterdeep, a lot of games that have that. Let's see, Shadows over Camelot, I guess that's kind of a fantasy-ish because it's kind of the mythology.
It's fantasy because it has like wizards and things.
Yeah,
right?
so it's a little shady gray, but oh gosh, Saboteur, you got the little dwarves and stuff. There's fantasy laced throughout a lot of great games.
Yep.
And you can do so much with that because that world is huge. That fantasy theme. There's so much you can do with it. So many different races and abilities.
And to your point, not to go too far into it, but even if it's even if it's a slapped on theme,
Mm-hmm.
I would rather have a slapped on fantasy theme than a slapped on like a zombie theme or something like that.
Oh yeah, any day.
So,
Yeah.
If you're gonna slap on a theme on top of a game,
Might as well be fantasy.
might as well be fantasy.
Yeah.
And I don't have a problem with that because you've got to put something, right?
Yeah.
Either you do a total abstract,
Abstract.
or you need some kind of theme. And if you're gonna slap on a theme, I don't have a problem with it being elves and dwarves
Yeah.
and magic and
Yeah,
whatever. So.
That's true. That's true. I give you that. That's pretty good. I pick up my list.
But don't lay your list down where I can see it. Is it my turn?
It's your turn.
And what number am I doing?
You should be doing number 4.
My number 4 is
Never keeps track.
medieval.
Ooh. Okay. You
I,
have several.
as a young lad, not to hearken to my young ladness, but knights and jousting and castles, it just I just love stuff like that. I love mythology. I love medieval theme. I just love that period of time. And I just, if I could live in a castle, I would live in a castle. But it's just an interesting thing to me because there's so many with the medieval theme. There's so many ways you can go to it. You can go with the again the knights and the jousting and the kind of the royalty and the pageantry of it. But you can also go to the nastiness of it, right? Because
Yeah.
there was a horrible time. There was a lot of suffering. There's a lot of
War and plagues.
Yeah,
and the filth.
the Crusades,
The Crusades,
and all
yeah.
that. You can. It's the whole the dark side of it. You can go that route as well. You can go with the castles and the
kind of the fantasy too. The
yeah.
overlay,
There's
kinda,
so many things
yeah.
you can do with the medieval theme, and it's just. I just think it's an interesting time. I mean, we all, obviously it's glorified, just like pirates are glorified but just the whole of. Starting out as a peasant and you become a squire somehow and you work your way up to a knight and just that whole thing has always interested me that you potentially can go from nothing to being somebody.
Yeah.
And again, that's probably glorified and doesn't happen as often as they make it seem like. But I just think that's interesting that whole caste system, you have the nobles versus the serfs and the peasants, and it's just interesting. I think a lot of the themes I like, it just interests me. Beyond outside of a board game, it just interests me, right? So that's why I like.
Well, I think that's why we have such variety in board games. Anyways, you want to appeal to people's general interests and stuff because that's going to catch your eye 1st. Mm-hmm. You're going to catch those games, and you're going to see those first in the artwork and stuff, and be like, oh, I kind of like that stuff. Go for it. So
all right, so that's my number 4. Medieval.
All right, my number 3 is nature. And this kind of surprised me a little bit, but then again it doesn't because I really like nature and I like to be out in it. And so we have probably my top one on this would be trekking the national parks. That was a recent and very quick favorite in our house.
Yep.
And then fauna, even the little ones that still are learning about animals and stuff love to guess and just throw it down, even if Nessa is not really sure where North and South America are and stuff. She's still working that out. She doesn't care. She wants to plunk it down and give a guess and have fun with it. And it's really fun because they always learn something. We always learn something.
Right.
And it's just really fun. And then what else? Oh, just the cute little card line games. If you've seen the card line animals or card line dinos, those are fun too. And it's another educational thing. Another family favorite that's an old one and really hard to find is Camp. And that one's been fun for us. We take that one camping, actually. And you have 4 different levels of questions. So as the kids grow up and learn more about nature, they can do the harder questions and learn about those. So it's like Trivial Pursuit, but nature themed. And really fun. And I don't know, just something about that educational aspect and nature.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. It didn't make my list, but that's a really good one. And again, that's a good one when we go camping, like you said. It's just kind of reinforces that. When we're taking a break from hiking or whatever we're doing, it's a good little kind of reinforce that how important nature is. So that's a good one. I like that one. Mm-hmm. All right, so 3. My number 3, which I feel may show up later on someone else's list, is science fiction. I love me some sci-fi. So, again, to reiterate what I've been saying through my entire list. When I was a young lad, I wanted to be an astronaut, and I wanted to go out into space, and I wanted to be Captain Kirk, and I wanted to explore strange worlds and new civilizations. I wanted to boldly go where no man has gone before. But I like sci-fi, and that's the reason I like sci-fi movies, I like sci-fi TV shows, I like sci-fi books. So why wouldn't I love sci-fi board games, right? So I don't need to really go into that too far, but we have several good sci-fi games, and I'm sure we'll talk about them more later, so I won't go too far into them. But Star Trek Fleet Captains is probably my favorite sci-fi game, and we'll move on from there. Okay, pretty good.
All right. My number 2, for those of you that know me, is no surprise whatsoever. I combined 2 themes, technically. And
Cheater.
Well, but they're kind of...
And as I say that,
one is narrow. You combined 2, didn't you?
As I say that, my number 2 is a combined theme.
How interesting.
Go ahead.
It's like
not to interrupt.
You didn't even peek, and we both did that. That's funny. My 2, one's kind of narrow, one's kind of broad. That's why I combined it, Roman and ancient. And, of course... That was my degree. So, of course, a natural progression for me is to do more with ancient Rome and Latin and Greek and all that nonsense. And I love it. And so, of course, I'm going to naturally gravitate towards those games. And we have some really good, strong games that focus on the ancient history and the Roman and stuff. Trajan's probably my most Roman game that we own that I just absolutely love. And I have a slew of little completely unknown games that I used for and my old Latin teacher used for teaching things and stuff. So I have some little cheesy games for classes and stuff. But then we've got Elysium. It's all based off of Greek mythology. And yep, I know, look at that mythology. 7 Wonders and 7 Wonders Duel, Elysium, Marco Polo. Old history. I don't, it's borderline on the ancient, but again, there's something about that time period. Battle Line. Even it's a little more abstract, but the theme is still there. And I like ancient history a lot. That's just one of my favorites. So I kind of have a draw to that. And one reason that I like, say, Trajan and why it's so Roman is it has more than just that abstract element that they slapped on the Roman theme. You're doing votes in the Senate and things like that. They really stuck to the Roman structure of government in that. It was kind of neat. So I enjoy that.
That's a good one. Didn't make my list, but a really good one.
Well, what a shock, right?
My number 2 is...
a combo.
Economic / stock market.
Oh, of course.
So I consider stock market an economy game. So I just love... I do numbers for a living, and I just love numbers. And I love seeing how a game takes numbers and makes them interact in a way that is balancing and yet interesting. And you're doing math and you're doing numbers, but you don't really even think about it. So games like Power Grid and Stockpile and even Viticulture is economy because you got to balance. You're trying to make the most money, right? Any game that you're trying to make the most money almost can be an economic game to a certain extent. So there's so many games that I like that are that way, that you're trying to balance what you're doing to make the most money. One of my favorite games that I don't have is Acquire, and that's an economic game. Airlines Europe has stock. It's an economic game. There's just so many good economic games, and again, I like games where you're doing math and you don't realize you're even doing math. It's built into the game. Yeah.
I think it's interesting that both of our number 2s have something to do with our career paths.
Yeah.
That's kind of interesting.
Yeah, that's interesting. That is interesting.
Yeah, but you're right. And a lot of those games I really like too. I don't necessarily like those themes, but I really like how those games play. They're really well made.
Yeah.
Because I normally would not say, oh, I like economic games, but there's something about Power Grid and Stockpile that I love playing those. They're a blast.
Yeah, and even a lot of games that's not necessarily the entire theme, it's a part, right? And those are some of the best games when you take 2 or 3 themes and you mesh them together in a way that's interesting, right?
Yeah.
And like, for example, like Airlines Europe, it's a stock game, but then you're building routes and things like that. So it's like Ticket to Ride meets the stock market, right? So it's I like it both as the entire game like Stockpile, I also like it when it's a major factor in a different game with a different theme.
Yeah. Very interesting. Very cool. All right. My number one, somebody already hinted at.
I didn't hint at anything sci-fi-ish.
Yeah, okay. Is sci-fi / I'll go ahead and just say space, because usually my sci-fi that I like is heavily space themed as well.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be space, but yeah.
It doesn't have to be, but
Yeah.
it seems in board games at least, my sci-fi is very space oriented. So Star Trek Fleet Captains, Star Realms, Roll for the Galaxy, even Smash Up, Mission Red Planet, Alien Frontiers, what am I missing? Oh, Firefly. There's some major fandoms here with great board games attached. So...
Yeah, there's some, and sci-fi sneaks its way in a lot of other games too, because you like, for example, Rampage is sci-fi, right? Because you got monsters.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. The Godzilla and the thing.
Yeah, and it's just it's anyway. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's huge. Yeah, that's my favorite fandom hobby thing. It's all sci-fi related. So, yeah, that's pretty self-explanatory, and it's definitely a theme and not a mechanic. So it's real easy to throw that into my number one slot, because we have a ton of games, again, from really light ones like Star Realms to Fleet Captains, which is a several hour long game, just kind of everywhere. I tend to gravitate towards those, so if we see a game that looks pretty solid with that theme, I'm probably going to be begging for it soon.
Yep, that's a good one. I mean, we have a lot of really great games, and like I said when I talked about it, it's just that whole, what's out there, that whole
exploring the unknown
thing, and you can use it. You can use it in such a way that you can do almost anything with it, right?
Yeah,
a planet could be anything, right? If you explore a planet, it could be all kinds of different creatures and monsters, and it's just
or you could do the technology aspect of it and just go from the sci-fi. Sci-fi is the what if thing for the future, and that's what I love about it so much, because a lot of times, and it can be dark, but it could also, like with Star Trek, it's highly optimistic, and just, I don't know, there's so much you can play with it. Like you said, there's so much play with it, and so many different categories. Gosh, Mission Red Planet, the sci-fi in that is real light and funny. You're going to colonize Mars, but you're all sabotaging each other and things, so you can make it really light or really thinky and deep.
Yep, that's a good one. But there's one that's better. And that is fantasy. My number one. By far. I think we've had this discussion before. Fantasy.
Sci-fi is better.
Fantasy.
Sci-fi.
Fantasy! Anyway. Fantasy. Best theme ever. And I don't care if it's overplayed. I don't care if there's too much of it. I don't care if you're tired of elves and dwarves and magic. It is amazing. Fantasy is awesome. Awesome. Behind this camera, there is shelves and shelves and shelves of fantasy books. I love fantasy. My favorite book of all time is The Hobbit. My favorite book series of all time is Lord of the Rings. Fantasy is just amazing. And it's fantastic. But no, I really like, again, this almost all of mine, I could say this about it, but it's the whole growing up as a kid, reading The Hobbit. I wanted to be, an elf, or I wanted to be able to cast spells, and I wanted to fight dragons, and I wanted to do all these cool, amazing things, and through fantasy and through fantasy board games, you get to be all kinds of different things.
Yeah, you get to explore those worlds that you always really enjoyed. Like War of the Ring. Oh my gosh, it's like living through the books that you enjoyed reading.
Yeah, it's
really fun.
It's what's the saying? Be all you can't be, right? So it's just interesting, and I've loved fantasy from a very, very, very young age, and that I think I will die loving fantasy. But I just love fantasy books, fantasy movies, fantasy everything. It really just appeals to me, and I don't think it can be overdone, or it's amazing. So that's why it's my number one.
There you go. That was easy. So yeah, and what's your favorite themes and games attached to them? Let us know in the comments, and we'll chat it up. And thanks again for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Bye.